So let's do a little bit of history, which will bring us to chapter 19. So who was the first king of Israel? Out loud. First king of Israel. Saul, second king of Israel. David, third king of Israel. Solomon. Solomon starts off really good. Remember we looked at his prayer where he asked for wisdom. He starts off great. He doesn't end great. Or he ends good at the very end. It's the middle part that's so damaging for him, because really what he does is he allows Israel to be led into idolatry. And the Bible says that their heart was shared between the false gods of the Canaanites and the surrounding nation, pagan nations, and their devotion to Yahweh. And so here's what God said. God said, because you have allowed the nation to be divided in their heart, after you die, Solomon, I'm actually going to divide the nation literally. And so the nation is going to get divided into the northern kingdoms and the southern kingdoms. The southern kingdom is made up of two tribes, Judah and Benjamin. Now, when the Bible describes the southern kingdom, it's going to describe the southern kingdom by calling it Judah. The northern kingdom is going to be made up of the other 10 tribes. Okay? And it's going to be called Israel. So you've got Israel and you've got Judah. The kingdom is now split. It is separated, with the tribe of Levi doing ministerial work for both the northern and the southern tribes, ministering to both. And as we move through history, Israel is going to get to the place where the Assyrian Empire becomes the world's superpower. We got some superpowers that we've already looked at, right? Egypt is a massive superpower. Now this Assyrian nation becomes the superpower. They're the biggest bully on the block. They're the ones who are the top of the hill. Did y'all ever play King of the Hill when you were little? Right? Where it's just you stand up on top of the hill and people run at you and you just shove them down and you try to tackle the person that's on top of the hill. Well, the Assyrians are on top of the hill. They have a king. The king's name is let's just call him King S. Sennacherib is his name. I'm not going to say that over and over again. He is on a military rampage. He's already taken the northern kingdom captive. He's actually deported. He comes into the northern kingdom and then sends all of them out. He deports them out to other places that they have to go. Now he's going to turn his sights on the southern kingdom. He's going to try to take the southern kingdom and its capital, Jerusalem. The king at this time of the southern kingdom is a man by the name of Hezekiah. Hezekiah was known as one of Judah's better kings. He is known for tearing down idols and restoring true worship to the southern kingdom. We can find that in 2 Kings 18. But he inherits a kingdom that is politically and militarily much weaker than Assyria. The truth is, if it was just a battle of military might and strategy, Assyria is going to take out the southern kingdom and wipe out Judah and Benjamin. As the Assyrians move into the northern part of the southern kingdom, listen to this, the northern part of the southern kingdom, they take out some of the fortified cities. All right, so some of the big fortified cities that are at the top of the southern kingdom, they all get taken out. So Hezekiah first tries to make peace. Okay? And when you're trying to make peace, money and gold and riches is always a good way to try to appease a foreign king who's raiding your land and trying to take it over. And that's what Hezekiah does. He gathers up the gold resources that they have collected. He actually takes some of the gold off of the temple doors and he gives it to the king of Assyria, hoping that that would appease him and he would stop, but that's not enough for him. So here's what he does. He sends a massive army toward the capital city of the southern kingdom. I've already told you what that was. What is it? See how well you were listening. What's the capital city of the southern kingdom? Jerusalem. Who said that? So I'm talking about junior high? Yes, it is Jerusalem. Assyria sends a massive army and he sends one of his major generals to give a warning. He's really there to try to demoralize the people, to scare the people, to make the people think there's no point in fighting. And here's a few things that he says. He actually stands on the city wall of Jerusalem and he yells this out over the city. He says a few things. He says, don't trust your king, Hezekiah. Don't trust him. He can't save you. He's going to get you killed. Then he says, don't trust Yahweh. Don't trust in your God. He won't save you either. He even claims that God, that Yahweh, has sent Assyria to take them over. Complete lie. So he stands on the city walls overlooking Israel and overlooking Jerusalem, and he says, don't trust your king and don't trust your God. We've actually been sent here by God, by your God, to take you captive. Later, the king of Assyria is going to send this same messenger again with his army again. Except this time, he is given a written warning. He literally has written down a direct warning to Hezekiah and the southern kingdom. And here's what it says. Do not let Yahweh deceive you by promising that Jerusalem will not fall. There's the warning. I know your God is saying that Jerusalem's not going to fall and that you're safe. Don't trust your God. He is not going to keep you safe. Now, this is more than a political statement. This is blasphemy. This is a foreign pagan nation saying to Judah and Jerusalem, your God has lied to you if he says he's going to protect you. It is not going to happen. It's blasphemy. And he really backs it up with history. Here's what he says. He says basically, look at all the nations I've wiped out already. I'm going to do the same thing to you. He says, look, I've already taken the northern kingdom. I'm taking Ethiopia right now. I'm going to take over all the nations of the world. We're the major superpower. Don't trick yourself into believing that we're not going to take you out. And don't believe your God if your God says that we're not going to take you out. This brings us to the prayer of Hezekiah in 2 Kings 19, 14 through 19. So we're going to read it piece by piece. We're going to go through it point by point. I'm going to ask some questions, have you point out some, try to find some observations in the text that I think will be very, very important for us. Look at verse 14. Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers, and he read it. Then Hezekiah went up to the house of the Lord. What is the house of Yahweh in Jerusalem? The temple. Who built this temple? Solomon. He takes this letter, he goes into the temple that has been built for God by Solomon, and he spreads the letter out in the presence of the Lord. Imagine you got a huge stack of homework, you got tests, you got sports practice, you got band practice, you got theater practice, and everything, all of the assignments that they've given, everything that they've put on you is all coming to a head at one time. It's all due at one time. I know that my kids have been there. I was there as a student. You feel like everything is just kind of weighing on top of you. You could try to hide everything under your bed. Just act like it's not there. It's not real. This test tomorrow is not real. And just throw everything under your bed. I don't think that'll work. You could panic and freak out. That's probably not going to help. Or what you could do is you could take this massive weight to a mentor, to a teacher, to a parent, to somebody you trust, and basically say, help me with this. It is too much for me. Hezekiah is physically spreading this letter out before God in the temple. It is a moment where he is saying, God, you've got to take this. You've got to take this. Psalm 55:22, you have this in your notes there. It says, cast your burdens on Yahweh and he will sustain you. Now let me ask you this question, and I do want your feedback. Why do you think he brings the actual letter into God's presence rather than just praying at home? Think about that question. Why doesn't he just read the letter and pray to God at home? Why take the physical letter, go into the temple, and lay out the letter before the presence of God? Why do you think he did that rather than just praying at home? Yeah. You got to speak up, bro. Okay, it could have more meaning. What do you mean by that? It could have more meaning. What? There's probably a sense in which he's like, I know that this temple is where the manifest presence of the Lord comes. I want to take this to the closest I can get to God. Right? I want to take this to the closest that I can get to God. Any other ideas? Why take this letter to the temple and pray there rather than just praying at home? Andy?
Like physically laying it.
Yeah, he physically laid it down.
Can I finish my sentence, maybe?
What are you saying?
He physically was laying it down in front of God.
Right.
Like this saying, lay everything down.
Oh, yeah. Let me phrase it this way. It's kind of what we did at camp.
Yeah.
Right? Where the posture of our heart is being matched with, as Andy said, the physical action of laying it down. So he's going to lay all this down before God. He knows the deal here. He knows we can't win this. So he doesn't want to just take it to God symbolically or spiritually or internally. He's basically, with all of his being, laying it down before God. Lucas?
Maybe I didn't have enough room in his house.
Say that again?
Maybe he didn't have enough room to spread it out.
Well, he's the king and he lives in a palace.
He could have had too much furniture. He could have had too much furniture.
Too much furniture? Yeah.
Anything's flat. So
Yeah.
he goes to the church where everything's flat.
Yeah, everything's flat in church. That's a perfect point. Yeah.
Where there's room to find his house.
Yeah.
I like the house.
Yeah. I don't know if that's right, Lucas, but the boldness by which you proclaimed it was great. Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I think these two answers were right. I'm not sure about that one. It could be. I mean, I don't know how much furniture he had, bro. He could have. I don't know. These two are right. So let me ask you this, and you don't have to answer this out loud, but I want you to think about it. How can you physically spread your problems, your crisis, your issues out before the Lord? How can you do what Hezekiah did? Where you are literally physically laying out your issues before the Lord. I can say a couple things that I know people do is they journal. They literally write down what is on their heart, what is troubling them, what difficulty they're going through. They write it down in a journal. I know people who will write it down on 3x5 cards or sticky notes or something, and they take it and I know people who have prayer closets where they go into their prayer closets and they actually take these, they'll staple or stack, just talk to your parents first before you do this, and they'll put things on their wall in order to physically have the problem laid out before them. You can be creative. You can think about how you would like to do it, but I think there is a time and a place to physically manifest the laying down, kind of what Hezekiah does here. Because there's a difference, there's a difference between telling God your problems and actually placing them in his hands. Right? You can go to God and pray, Listen to me. You can go to God and you can lay it out. You can lay it down before God, and tell all of your problems. And then as you leave that time of prayer, pick it right back up and say, I got this. I'll take care of it myself. Right? You see the difference between actually not just laying your problems out before God, but actually placing them in His hands. And sometimes we have to do some physical actions in order to do that. I've done things like I've written down things on a piece of paper and then I've burned it. Again, I'm not saying burn stuff at your house without your parents' permission. Tear it up. Throw it in the trash. There's a bunch of different things that we can do. And that's kind of what Hezekiah is doing here, is physically laying this out before God. Now look at what happens, what he prays in verse 15 and 16. This is actually when he gets into the prayer. It says, and Hezekiah prayed before Yahweh, and here's what he said. O Yahweh, the God of Israel, enthroned above the cherubim, you are the God, you alone. Of all the kingdoms of the earth, you have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Yahweh, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. This prayer now begins where many of the prayers we've already looked at in the Old Testament begin. They begin with a praising of the character and the personhood of God. They focus on praising God and praising His character and who He is. Before he ever mentions to God the problem, he praises God for all of His power. So before he ever brings the problem, he praises God for His power. Psalm 146:6, the maker of heaven and earth is our help. Now let me ask you this question. What does this do for Hezekiah? By Hezekiah starting his prayer off with God being, look at what it says. O Yahweh, the God of Israel, you are enthroned above the cherubim. Cherubim were beings that would do the work of God. We call them angels or angelic beings. Technically, angels or angelic beings, that's more what they do than what they are. Angels is the word messenger. Okay? You are more powerful than any spiritual force. He says, you are the God. Meaning you are the only one. There is no other one. You have made heaven and earth. You're the king. You're above everything else. You made heaven and earth. Why start the prayer here? But here's the specific question I want to ask. What does this do for Hezekiah? That's my question I'm throwing out. What does this do for Hezekiah? What do you think, Lucas?
Fixes his heart posture, I would say.
Okay.
He's lowering himself before he gets to his problem. Saying if he'll believe more that God can take care of it, and he lifts him up and forces himself.
Okay. Great answer. Much better than your last one.
I think.
You think the first one was really good?
Yeah,
Frank.
really
Frank goes, I don't know. The first one was really good.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. It's going to humble him. Here's one thing I thought of. It's putting the problem in its proper place compared to the greatness of God. In other words, I think there's a lot of times in our lives where whatever we're dealing with looks massive. Right? Looks huge. It looks impossible. it looks so difficult that it cannot be remedied, it cannot be fixed, it cannot be overcome. Right? I am sure that just from a physical perspective, it looks like this enemy can't be defeated. But what he does is, by praying this, he's actually putting that difficulty in its proper place. And he's saying, compared to you, God, the king of Assyria is nothing. Right? So it's shrinking the fear and it's increasing the faith. When we come to God, when we got big problems and we come to God with those big issues, but we, instead of talking about how big the issue is, we start by talking about how big God is. It's going to increase the faith, it's going to push down the fear, and it's going to put that difficulty in its proper place. Look at the second half of verse 16. It says, incline your ear, O Lord, hear, open your eyes, O Lord, and see, hear the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to mock the living God. When somebody insults your best friend or one of your close friends, do you not take up a defense for them? Does it not tick you off a little bit? Would you not defend them? Hey, don't say that about my friend. Let me tell you something. I've said this a million times. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But if you badmouth my wife, I'm going to come to her defense. Not for my sake, because I esteem her so much. I think so highly of her that if I heard people trashing her or bashing her, you better believe I'm going to stand up for her. Because I think so highly of her. Well, that's what's happening here. They are mocking Almighty God. And Hezekiah is basically saying, listen, God, you've heard this. You've seen the insults. They're not just insulting us, God. They're not just insulting Judah or Jerusalem or the king. They're insulting you. Now, what does this do to the situation? Well, this turns the conflict into God's battle, not just Hezekiah's battle. Right? This is Hezekiah saying, God, this isn't just an attack on us. This is an attack on you. Not just us. You remember the story of Saul? Not King Saul, but New Testament Paul. You remember before he got saved, what city was he on his road to persecute Christians? Damascus. He was on his way to Damascus to persecute Christians, to kill Christians. What happens on his way to Damascus? Let me get one of the junior high girls to answer this question. What happens when Saul is on his way to Damascus to kill Christians? God approaches him. And do you remember, look at your verse there in front of you. Do you remember what is said in Acts 9:4? Jesus says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Now, wait a minute. Jesus has died, resurrected, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Is Saul literally, physically assaulting Jesus of Nazareth? No, he's assaulting his followers. But what does Jesus consider it? Assaulting me. You go after my people, you're going after me. That's what Hezekiah, that's where he's framing this whole thing. God, we're your people. Yahweh, we're your people. And this foreign king is coming to attack us. This isn't just an attack on us, God. This is an attack on you. Look at verses 17 and 18. Truly, O Lord, the king of Assyria has laid waste to the nations and their lands. They have cast their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but the worker of men's hands, wood and stone, therefore they were destroyed. Now, when I was in junior high, a game came out on the original Nintendo. Listen to me. To this day, I don't know if there's ever been a better gaming system than the original Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. We had cartridges that would get dust on them, and sometimes the only way to get it to go is you get to blow in the cartridge. You have to make sure you don't have spit in your mouth because you don't want to get liquid in there. So you got to get stick it in, hit power, and hopes that it comes on. One of my favorite games was a game called Contra. Okay? To this day, I don't know what the game was about. I don't know if it was aliens that we were fighting, if it was... I don't exactly know what we were fighting, but it was a level game where you're fighting aliens. But here's the problem with Contra. At the end of every level, the boss was almost impossible to beat. It was ridiculous. It was the hardest game I'd ever played. And I would get to the end of a level and lose and die and lose and die and lose and die. And I remember going to school one day complaining to my friends about how stinking hard Contra was. And one of my friends had bought a gaming magazine. And in this gaming magazine was a Contra cheat code. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, select, start. The game would start, unlimited lives, unlimited weapons, every power-up you can think about. And I beat that game immediately. Why? Because I had the cheat code. I still don't know what I was fighting. Again, like I said, I don't know if it was aliens or what it was. But I beat it with the cheat code. Here's what Hezekiah does. Does Hezekiah deny how powerful Assyria has been? Does he go, Assyria, they're not powerful. Chumps. Is that what he does? Look back at verses 17 and 18. What does he say? He says, they're going around taking out nations. They're taking out kings. They're taking out nations. They're taking out the gods of all the other nations. He doesn't deny the power that they have. But here's what he does recognize. The power that they have isn't enough to defeat you. It's like when David, in 1 Samuel 17, remember when David goes up against Goliath? What does he say? You come to me with the shield and the sword, and that's the biggest shield and sword I've ever seen. In fact, you not only have a shield and a sword, you've got a shield bearer that carries around your shield for you. That's the biggest spear I've ever seen. You're 9 foot 6 inches tall. David's not thinking, oh, this guy's not big. He recognizes the giant. But then what does he say? You come to me with all that, but I come to you in the name of Yahweh. King of Assyria, oh yeah, you're mighty and you're powerful. But we still got a power difference here. And this power difference is that all the other foreign nations, when he takes their gods and he throws their gods into fire and he burns them up, you know why their gods burn up? Because they're not real gods. Let him try that here. When you're praying, be honest about the situation. If it's hard for you, be honest with God that it's hard for you. If it's difficult, be honest with God that it's difficult. If it seems big, be honest with God that it seems big. But then recognize that power difference once again. Go back to praising God for how great he is. And then I love how he ends this prayer. This is my favorite point tonight. Passion for God's preeminence. I'll talk about what that word means in just a minute. How many of you have ever been to a musical, orchestra, a band concert? How many of you have ever been to any of those? Raise your hand. You ever been to any of them, okay? When you go to an orchestra, specifically an orchestra, they are playing pieces of music written by somebody else, correct? Right? So it's not like the orchestra all got together and they're like, hey, let's write a beautiful piece of music. No, they were given this music that somebody else wrote, and they're gonna play this music. When they're playing this music, are they playing this music to look great themselves? No, they're playing the music in order to make the piece beautiful. In other words, the trumpets got to play their part, the saxophones, the strings, the drums, like everybody's got to play their part. And if they don't play their part, then no one's going to think that this piece is beautiful. Their job is to play the music to make the writer of the music be the one who looks great. You don't want to walk out of listening to somebody, an orchestra that just played Beethoven. You don't want to walk out there and go, I tell you what, that second girl from the left on the third row, when she played her violin, now that is top notch. You know what you do? You leave going, my goodness, that piece that Beethoven wrote was unbelievable. That is the attitude of Hezekiah. You know why Hezekiah wants God to win this battle? It's not that so Hezekiah can just simply take away any difficulty in his life or any hardship in his life. Look at what he says in verse 19. He says, "So now, O Yahweh, our God, save us, please, from his hand." And listen to this, "that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you, Yahweh, are God alone." Look at it again. Look at verse 19. This is the key to the whole prayer. Yes, save us. Absolutely, we don't want to die. But the ultimate reason why you need to save us, God, is so that all the nations recognize there is only one God. And it is Yahweh. He's the only one. This prayer has a God-centered purpose. Psalm 115:1. Not to us, O Lord, but to your name be glory. Now, anybody want to take a guess on what the word preeminence means? What does the word preeminence mean? Yes. Before something, yes. And you got that because the wonderful prefix, preeminence. Here's what it means. The state of being superior to, more important than, having the highest rank, authority, or importance. God's authority, God's rank, God's importance is superior over everybody and everything else. I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. I want you to think about it. Would you be okay if God's glory was served even if you don't get what you initially prayed for? Are you okay with God getting the glory even if that means you don't get what you asked for? That's difficult for us. That's hard for us. Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think it's hard for you? Why do you think it's hard for me? Why do you think it's hard for us to say yes to that? Yeah, God, I want you to look great, even if it means I don't get what I asked for. Even if it means that I go through hardship, I go through difficulty, or I don't get release from this thing that I'm asking for, Frank. Okay. Yeah, and give me examples of how our pride would play into that.
Like thinking that you deserve something in return for, like, you deserve something from God.
Okay.
In return for praise.
Yeah, I deserve for you to answer this prayer the way that I want it answered. Lucas?
I think, what Frank said, we think, like, the answer. What we want is the correct answer. I don't think we see God getting greater as something that's like fix our problems. But I think something that stood out to me with saying that is if we pray that prayer that you pray, praise it first.
Yep.
I think then we get the there.
Yep.
They're the pieces above the bottom.
Yeah, beautiful, man. I think the pride is the ultimate issue, and then you gave us the great example of our problem, right? So the pride is the issue, and it's either that we think we deserve something or we think we know better. We know better. And so I'm going to pray for this thing, and God, if you don't give me this thing, you must not love me. You must not care about me because I know what's best for my life, and this thing I'm praying for is what I need. But here's the truth. You don't know what's best for your life. You don't know what you need. And the humility that it takes to say, Lord, I want your glory, because when you make your glory, when you make yourself great, that is going to be good for me. Students, listen to me. I could sit here all day and tell you times where I prayed things and I wanted God to answer them a certain way, and God didn't do it. Instead, God did something else. And that thing that he did made his name great. I was having a conversation. I'll end with this. I was having a conversation with my son. Caden goes back to school on Friday, back to Howard Payne. And you guys know we went on an Alaskan trip, mission trip. 21 kids gave their lives to Christ through our basketball camps. And I was kind of tracing everything back. And here's what I mean. I've told you guys the story. I was going to go to Texas Wesleyan to play basketball at the age of 18. They took my scholarship away from me a week before I was supposed to officially sign with them. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do, where I was going to go, what I was going to do. This was like now April of my senior year. Member of our church calls me up and says, hey, let's go watch this school play basketball. And that school was Howard Payne University. I ended up making the team, going to Howard Payne. Jessica, my wife, got to go to Howard Payne, play volleyball for a couple years. We got to make some contacts and some important things there. When it came time for my son to go to school, my son decides, doors opened up. We knew people. I mean, his Old Testament, New Testament professor was my Old Testament, New Testament professor. And the guy that got me, took me to that first game, is the assistant coach at Howard Payne University. All these doors opened up, and now Caden went to the school that I went to. If Caden hadn't gone to Howard Payne, he never would have met a guy by the name of Carter Eddy. Carter Eddy is one of his teammates. Carter Eddy's dad works with Hoops for Hope International and has gone on mission trips for 23 years with them, and they were the ones who invited us to go. We go. 21 kids get saved. I'm tracing this whole story, and I'm thinking, the moment God shut the door for me at Texas Wesleyan, you know what God had in mind? A million things, but one thing he had in mind, 21 kids in Alaska who are going to get saved. That was 1997. They got saved in 2025. I wanted what I wanted at the age of 18. God's glory meant more to him than me just playing basketball where I wanted to play. I just use that as an illustration. Look at me, and we know we got to go. I just use that as an illustration. There are going to be times in your life where God doesn't give you what you pray for. And he's doing that because he's going to make his name and his fame great in your life in a different way. You've got to be okay with that. Right? So Hezekiah starts this prayer off talking about how great God is, putting that problem in its proper place. Fear goes down, faith goes up. He doesn't deny that there's a problem or a crisis or a difficulty. He acknowledges that. But he acknowledges that any attack on God's people is an attack on God himself, and God was going to come to his aid. And God was going to make his name great. And Hezekiah wanted that more than he wanted anything else.